Hello, my name is Caroline O'Donoghue, and I'm here in conversation with Jenny Slate and to welcome you here to this Fane live event. Jenny, it's amazing to get to speak with you. How are you today?
Hello, I'm okay. Um, yeah, before we started recording, I called out that I am, first of all, of course, American, and it's been a gnarly time over here. Um, but sort of generally, a gnarly time. But I am, yeah, you're catching me a few days after my really beloved grandmother passed away. So I am kind of I am as I am, I guess. And I'm here in her house. And I'll also say she was like really my number one fan. So if she were here, she'd be so excited that, Jenny's got an interview and it's it's kind of nice uh to think about it in that way. But yeah. So, I'm existing. Thank you for asking. How are you?
I'm so sorry for your loss, and but I'm glad that in your work, whether it's in your new book Lifeform or in one of your stand-up specials or even in elements of Marcel the Shell, there are
Yeah.
elements of your Nana Connie that have lived and breathed through it. And I think it's really wonderful how, like, I mean, it's not that frequent that somebody has the kind of the privilege of having a grandparent like into their 30s and 40s, and I lost my grandfather a few years ago, and it destroyed me much more than I thought it would. But also that she's like a character that we all know about if we follow your work. and
Yeah.
and there's this really beautiful part of one of your specials where you go to her house where you are right now,
Yeah.
and you try on her clothes. And there was something about, because I rewatched it again last night in preparation for this, and she sits you down and she pats your little hand and she's like, um, something like she's something like you're a star not because you're beautiful and not because you're smart, but because you're good.
Yeah. Yeah. That was her she like really drilled that one in. Sort of like there are a lot of things that are cool to be and like that we hope for or we aspire to be, but um you got to be good. And that also, she really allowed, like, she had a very specific definition for herself, like morally, ethically, socially. She had her own kind of protocol there, but she always allowed for goodness to be, up to a certain point, really open to interpretation, depending on like who you are, what kind of person you are. Like, she would never say that for a very shy person, for example, they should do what she did, which is to often like drive around people's houses and, leave pastries for them, like host big parties. Um, but yeah, she really like uh was such an example of true goodness that when I think about it now, and she was just had such an incredible personality that I just kept putting her in my work. And I was saying yesterday to a family member, I didn't really think about it except for like, kind of when you cook or something, you're like, let's just put the best thing in. Let's start with like the thing that we like so much. Um, but also that like, the best thing, she really brought out the best in me. And so because my work is such a, non-negotiable true love of mine in a way, it now in retrospect makes sense that I continue to place her in there in sometimes just fully like as herself, and sometimes, the Nana Connie in Marcel the Shell um is a more of a combination of both of my grandmothers, but I was very close to both of them. And then the Nana Connie that is in my new book, Lifeform, especially I mean, she's in the first piece, just sort of referenced as the grandmother who took me to a department store and bought me my first makeup. And and was really sort of into style and had a big influence on me. But also at the end of my book, I discuss, her, as I described it, like increasingly free form oldness, and that she herself, like she was just such a social, friendly, grateful, vivacious person. And even when her mind was sort of like drifting in its own sea, her core inclinations were always there. And I wanted to discuss that because I think I mean, honestly, I think it's like a great insult if I would have used her in my work when she was like up and running, but not been able to include it when she was more dimming. So yeah,
There,
yeah.
there's this. I've loved your work for a long time, but I really fell deeply in love with it with Little Weirds.
Oh,
Um, and that was a book that I think it came out before the pandemic, but I discovered it in the pandemic. And I'm sure lots of people have said this to you, but it's so much a book about trying to find sort of the comfort and beauty in being alone, because it's so written from so much of it is written from the perspective of singleness and being divorced and going through that. And it was this book where I two of my best friends, they both are single women who live alone, and or they were at the time, and I posted it to both of them with the annotated with passages underlined. And there was that beautiful chapter where you talk about going on holidays with your two friends to an island, and just kind of underlining it and just writing down the margins like this us soon, um, and I feel like, and correct me if I'm wrong, Little Weirds was such a thing about trying to find sort of pleasure and wholeness in aloneness. And then Lifeform, for me, it almost corrects that stance. It says, oh, I was never alone, because it's so much about continuum and about like there's my favorite passage in the book. And I was talking to my friend on the phone about it this morning, that sort of house of souls you talk about, that place where you go that you've created to find the strength to have your baby, this thing that you are so afraid of,
yeah.
and so excited to do but afraid of, right? Like,
Yeah.
and I wanted you to talk maybe a little bit about that continuum and that realization that you're never alone.
Yeah, I think the first step is this is the first thing of like, oh my gosh, I feel such a an intensity of aloneness, or I feel like I'm like really, I'm kind of, I feel tracked by it. I feel like this aloneness is waiting to arrive again, and it doesn't feel good. And I think I've always been like a playful person. I've always been one of these people that kind of like, I don't know, like as a teenager, like there are those of us that, even by ourselves in a room would imagine, what if the people I really want to be friends with were here and they like really they saw me and they like really liked me, or even now, like I sometimes when I'm getting ready to go on a date with my husband, and I'm getting dressed, I can't help but imagine like what if this was our first date and he saw me coming in now, at 42, and I looked like I'm wearing this outfit, and what would he think? And it's a good way to I think like refresh oneself, but to be like the options aren't limited. But I think like going into giving birth, I just was like, yeah, I mean, you can be kept safe if you're lucky. Like if you have what you need, like you can be kept safe, but nobody can do this. Like they just can't do this for you. You have to do it. And I really needed to find a way in my own mind, at least, if not in my physical body, to be like, mm, but my mind and my spirit are actually, we're in a different context. We're in a different dimension. I'm totally allowed to just be thinking about it. Like it started with me being like trying to do these hypnobirthing meditations, which is like something that they say you should start doing while you're pregnant, and that like maybe you'll put yourself into self-hypnosis during your labor, which I never thought would happen at all. At all. But I do like need a lot of chilling out. Like I really need a lot of soothing, and I'm an anxious person a lot, and I enjoy doing the meditations because they just were a lot about like here's what happens like first and foremost when you go into labor. It's like your pituitary gland like sends a chemical message, and this is where it goes and this is what happens, and then it's sort of combined with like imagine you and your partner walking around your uterus, like pushing the uterus open. And it was like, well, okay, like I don't really want to imagine my husband like walking around in my uterus, honestly, but I tried, and I appreciated it. And then so before, but I was like, but this isn't really my deal, like, and it got me thinking, what would I want? And I was just like, you know what I want? I want all those people to not be dead. I want all those people that I loved even as a baby, that I got to meet only physically when I was very young, but I've felt them with me my whole life. I want them back. I want to not be in like a weird, ugly place. I want to not be in a country that I've ever heard of. I want to be in a seasonal environment that I create. And like, actually, I'm a very, very specific person with like a full-blown aesthetic set of aesthetic preferences, and I want to be able to use all of them. And I just want to fully believe in like um in like a spiritual dimension that I myself have created. And I'm just like tired of limits, because you're asking me to literally push another person out of my body and make the person in my body. So if you're saying that I'm doing that, I'm going to say that I'm doing this other thing. And I really just was like, oh, I guess I really needed this. And I started to write it down, but then I kind of got distracted and tired and I stopped. Then I had the baby. Then the baby was um alive for I think 2 years, and my grandmother died, my grandmother Rochelle.
Mm.
And I was like, oh no, I can't um I can't lose her now. And I have to put her in something that has a life force in it. And suddenly I remembered that I hadn't um finished that piece. And I was like, oh, it's back, that time when I need more than I'm allowed. And so I'll put her in the past before I was about to give birth. And I'm allowed to because she's dead now, so I can put her anywhere. And I finished it, and I found that it was a piece, of course, about a birth visualization, but I was only able to give myself everything that I need after the fact, which is generally, well, I think what a lot of us feel about significant moments.
That you acquire more than you're allowed.
Or that, like, going through a breakup or going through something that's just like, whoa, I wasn't expecting this. That sometimes in the moment you can't give yourself everything you would have needed. And you can kind of feel like, well, I didn't give myself the medicine that I needed for the injury in the moment. So I guess I'm going to always have sort of like an emotional limp around this thing that happened that I didn't want to happen. But like one thing that I've found is that this birth visualization, this house of the dead, is the start of a process for me that I've also learned about a lot in parenthood, which is like that thing that has hurt me for so long, the opportunity to heal it is actually not over. But you have to find, for me, like it's like I have to find what works for me.
That's so beautiful, and it reminds me of something you said quite a while ago. I think it was when you were promoting Marcel, that his voice came from you kind of, I think maybe in that post SNL period where you were being very hard on yourself, and then this kind of little a darling voice came from you, and there was a part of you that was like, well, this comes from me, and how could you be cruel to him? And I just really admire your ability to find this kind of magical realist space to survive in. And I agree with your graduation speech when you say that like people would be happier and would like it's like this gift you're trying to give people. Like you can create this space in your mind, even if you can't with your body, to like create loveliness and survival for yourself. Um,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
wonder, like, sorry,
No, no, you go for it. Sorry.
no, because it reminds me, and this is going to be a very weird comparison, but it reminds me when I was in college and we were studying Toni Morrison, which is a great literary comparison for you. Um, but I remember we were doing like Beloved and talking about how like the words the existing words and language that we have in like the English language are none of them are big enough to describe the horrors of slavery. And so how Toni Morrison had to keep pushing everything more outwards and be like create ghosts and figments and curses and things that are hard to understand because the idea that people could do that to other people is too hard to understand. And
Yeah.
I'm just so curious about this way that you have. Would you say your kind of magical realist approach in your literature kind of comes from that sort of idea?
Well, I mean, certainly not the same context at all, but
No, no I mean, obviously, some, but you know, yeah.
oh man, yeah, I can really like feel the clickbait coming. It's like Jenny Slate compares herself to Toni Morrison, this idiot. She's so
Jenny's like motherhood, like slavery.
oh my God, like she's the worst. No, yeah. So I just to be clear, not a comparison I would ever make. But in terms of using magical realism, like first of all, it's not like I'm like sitting around and being like, what's the plan here? Like, what are we gonna do? What device should I do or use? But I do think that, God, I just hate being misunderstood. And I really, really hate the feeling of like, oh, someone just made an assumption about me, and that's very far off. And for some reason I really take it to heart. And so but I also take it as an opportunity, like, well, if you have something you really want to be understood, what's the way that you can get around cliche and the, like sexist connotation? Um, what's the way that you can get around that and still say the thing that you need to say and let people really feel it? Like, how do you make the impact so that they don't just hear you, but they really do feel it? And I, and also like a lot of times I am in writing, like in the act of not just like processing or figuring something out, but I'm trying to give myself nice things. Because a lot of times I think if we feel depressed, we feel bad, and that's a big, big, stupid, bad word or whatever, but bad. Um, one of those feelings is like, well, there's kind of nothing in the mail for me. Like nothing's coming my way. No one knows I'm here. Nothing is going to happen again. And that can be a very large feeling that can really like just kind of create a like a gloop pod over a person, certainly me, and can feel rather like permanent and impenetrable. And I think I just like to be like, what's the most living, beautiful thing that, as you said, like that has the space for the truth of what this is. And that is in a way so far from the human world that we know that people will actually accept it more because their knee-jerk reaction to be like, I already know that, I already heard that, I can't look at that. Well, that's about you. All
Mm.
of that kind of goes away when you're like, this is a dream, this is a vision, um, whatever it is. And I find magical realism to be the zone where I feel the most honest, the most creative, and I have the most faith in the ability for assumptions to be erased, understanding to occur, or connection to occur, and also for that other thing that they call the like deep, happens with like deep reading. Like if you've ever read anything by Marianne Wolfe, she wrote this book called Reader Come Home, and she kind of
Mm.
talks about like what happens in the brain when you read like a physical text and you kind of bust into the back ballroom of your brain where you take, you know, Sheila Heti or whatever, and you're dealing with that beautiful imagery, but you're also creating something new with it. As my dad says, he said to me like about my new book, he was like, you're not just unlocking the memory, you're unlocking the imagination for yourself and other people. And like the life force kind of goes through that. And I just really, I really need to feel that I'm not in a dead end. And it makes me feel good to try hard to give myself and anyone else who would care about what I'm saying something beautiful and to not trap myself in the present. And the other thing about like let's say beloved,
Yeah.
it, or the other thing about writing about something, at least for me, that's like this is something that happened. Apparently, it's over, but it's not over for me. And I feel it in my spirit. But apparently, I'm supposed to hold that inside of myself at best as some sort of mental issue, when in fact, it's not just a mental issue, it is spiritual. There is a meeting of um of the spirit and like your psyche that is like an emotional sort of like energy wash that um yeah, sometimes we have to live in them by ourselves and it's scary because it feels like there are ghosts around you and you have to try to be normal. Or if you're really happy, it feels like there's an
Yeah.
angel you and you're not even allowed to say it because if you said it out loud and someone was like, "No, there's not an angel around you," you would be like, "Ah, shit, now this thing I like it doesn't feel as good anymore because now it just got like rejected." And I think a lot of artists need to find a way to show that kind of like scrim of like an energy color. And I'm just like so concerned with that. I feel so good when I do it.
You do it so beautifully. And like, I feel like I almost have to like take a long walk around the block every time I read a page of your prose because I know the next time I pick up a pen, I will try and like do your voice because it's so kind of addictive to see the
Yeah.
world and to write like that. And it's there's kind of nobody like it. And what's so fucked to me is that like this is your like this is like the you've had this whole other enormous career as an actor and a performer, and then I don't know, I'm not sure how old you were when you wrote Little Weirds, and then this kind of like, and I just there's something so admirable and beautiful to me that like and also just savvy and smart that like I'm sure there were many people who expected some kind of Jenny Slate memoir that was like, and here's me in Parks and Recreation, and here's me in this, and then to give people the profound emotional truth of your existence while not hammering any details to anything or mentioning another actor's name, or you know what I mean, like did you have that moment with readers where they were like, well, I thought I was going to get some behind the scenes from SNL or whatever, and
I mean, I think maybe well, I definitely like when I was like, I want to write a book now. Um, there were certainly like a group when I met with, different publishers, like a small group of people that were like, we just want like do bossy pants or whatever, like do like just write
yeah.
like a comedy book, like a comedy memoir, write a memoir of who you are in relation to your work with like specifics about that. And like it's not that I don't like that type of work, it's just that like I am not good at it or interested in doing it for myself. And I also like I don't really feel comfortable um calling attention to myself in that way. And part of it um is a feeling that I think like I live with, of feeling like there are big inconsistencies in my career as a performer, not as a stand-up. Um, because like my career as a stand-up, I'm like, this is exactly what I meant it to be. Like it's the size I wanted. I would be sad if it was smaller, and I don't want it to be any bigger. Like I don't want to tour. I don't want to perform at Madison Square Garden or, like I just want to perform for like at the most maybe 1,000 people at a time, and that's it. And I don't want any pressure to make any specials unless I want to. And like this is
Mm.
exactly what I meant to do. But I'm I just don't I've never really felt like in control of my life as an actor. And so there's a part of me that feels like I don't really want to talk about that on the page because that's like not very interesting to me um on the page, and it doesn't call in the voice that I really want to speak in. that's like definitely waiting to be expressed. But there were people that asked for that, and I was like, no, I would rather not write a book than have to write like a memoir. And luckily my editor, Jean, like really understood what I wanted to do and was like, yeah, you should do that. And so I went with her. But I think in terms of like the readers, I'm lucky to have met people that respond in some way or another the way that you're saying that you respond. And I'm also,
Bigly accusatory that you're saying you
oh,
respond.
I mean, I didn't know. Well, you say it like it, but we'll see. No, like, yeah, I mean, like, but in the specific way that belongs to you, but also I am very strict about like not going online and looking about what people would say about me. So I'm sure there are people that are like, what the fuck is this shit? Like, I hate it, and I'm sure because it's not, I don't really consider my writing to be like appropriate for like the mainstream, but I actually think it's accessible for anyone that's interested. And there is a part of me that's like, I'm really not like an upstart, like I don't like feel like I gotta prove this or that. Um, and I don't think I'm so like, ugh, like such a pure artist that I'm just like, oh, I'm just gonna do whatever I'm gonna do. But one thing I learned as an actor is that like I'm worse at it when I'm asked to be doing it in a style that I don't relate to. Like I would be bad on a sitcom, like a three camera sitcom playing a funny friend. Like there's no version of me that is, would have been good on like whatever. One like a three camera sitcom. And it's the same with writing that I just was like I want to make something good, and the only good thing I can think of is the thing that I want to do. So if you're saying I can do it, I'm just going to try to make it the best I can make it. And then once I wrote Little Weirds, I was like, oh, this is this is the way that I am, and it's not a secret inside of me anymore. I haven't been trying to keep it a secret, but it's just been more in my most intimate relationships that people know that I think and feel this way. And that's kind of a gigantic relief now.
Yeah, I bet. I can't imagine what it must feel like to be in. I mean, you say you have kind of very mixed emotions about your acting career and Hollywood in general, and like I would say, mixed emotions about Hollywood in general is like a generous sort of reading, you know. But I mean, what's so whenever I mean, I have actor friends, but like whenever I speak to them, I just cannot believe the lack of control available to you, unless
Yeah,
you are like Tom Hanks kind of thing, and like that you are waiting on the approval of others and waiting to see if you look right or fit right. And like, reading those early chapters of Lifeform, and they're so adorable to read and lovely of like you being so like anxious in the early stages of romance with your husband, of
yeah,
being like like kind of like not being able to control how he feels about you,
yeah,
and that being so relatable, but also being like, how could this person like audition? Like that's a horrible thing to do to her.
I have some really specific zones, that are like kind of weird. Like, when you find out that there's like I don't know, like someone who seems meek and shy, and then you find out that they just like love movies about boxing or something, like they love
Yeah, or
movies.
they hunt or something. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. That's a weird combo, but I guess we're actually all very various. And um, I really like auditioning because um, I like to feel that I've like earned my spot. And again, like I don't like that feeling of like, well, why did you assume that I would come in here and do it this way when you didn't ask me about it first? Like I don't want to disappoint anyone, but if somebody offers me a job and then I come in there and I'm going to do it, I don't know how to do it the way that they were envisioning. That is like so uncomfortable for me. So I don't mind auditioning at all. And that is actually not the That's not the issue that I have, but it is, I've felt this feeling only in acting where it's like, I have a sense of the type of performer that like I can see other performers doing it and I'm like, yeah, I could, I think like that if I could consistently like be like um that would work for me. But it's not really felt to me that I am completely understood or something. And I think one thing that is also reflected in life form, like I wrote Little Weirds when I think I was 37, and I wrote life form when I was 41. And at that time I was like, well, I'm just not gonna do anything again that I think is a weird fit for me. Like, I hope I don't lose all my money and I hope I can keep paying my mortgage because like, acting is my job. But like, I would rather, I would rather not, I would just rather not try to do that anymore because it like a bad fit makes me feel bad about myself and leads to this feeling of like, is this my fault? Like, am I just so random? Like, what's happening? And one thing I can point to is that like sometimes there's necessity. Sometimes like you're like, someone in my family is sick. I need a big amount of money right now to pay
Hmm.
for like a caregiver to live in their house. And I'm
Hmm.
I'm gonna go over here and do this job because I have to. And I'm gonna make the best of it. But sometimes there is a confusion between necessity and desperation. And that is a that's a mistake that I can almost guarantee that I will hopefully not make again.
Oh, congratulations. I
But we'll
feel
see.
like I make that mistake constantly. I mean, this might be like too personal a thing, but I only want to say it because it's something I personally want advice with. But it's like like you said that thing of like, a moment where you need to do something to provide for your family because you are the person who is tapped into an industry that like everyone works hard, everyone's good at what they do, but this industry specifically will
Mhm.
like unleash a bucket of money over your
Yeah,
head if you
yeah,
if you tweak the dials of the safe correctly in the right order.
yeah.
And like, what is that like? I know you have a big close lovely family, like what is that like within the dynamics of your family?
I mean, in terms of like literal money, my family is like one that is, I would say, like one of our kind of like if we were like a herd of animals, like how like elephants like go back to the place where one of them died and they like circle around and they come back there and they mourn.
Mm-hmm.
Like I do think my family, like especially because they're like, one side is like Holocaust survivors who came here and entered the working class and like we're my family owned a liquor store. My grandfather owned a liquor store, and my other grandfather owned he inherited one like shabby old beautiful candy factory that my great grandfather had in the depression. And everybody,
Oh.
like they all worked in the places and they amassed like money to pay for education. They saved money for education. My family's always been circulating money, everybody giving to everybody else. And that is genuinely something that my Nana Connie, who just passed away, like she really instilled it in us, like circulate, help, like, so a lot of and why I try to tell about like providing, understanding that is like you don't know when someone's going to need something so much more. And so for me, I don't think I act like I don't live one of those lifestyles where like giant dumps of cash happen a lot, but occasionally, it's like, hey, do you want to do a toothbrush commercial that is on Instagram? And like, yes, like, yeah, I want to do that because it's like easy. Somehow it sends the message that I brush my teeth, which I think is always great. And like, I don't have a problem with that. But what I think, and also to be able to tell my, if someone needs it, what I imagine is like, it's okay to accept this from me because I worked for a day to get it and I only saved it for us. So because it doesn't mean that I can't, pay my babysitter or lease my car. Like, and like I don't I can still buy the fancy sweater that I want to buy from the, weird store in Brooklyn if that's what I want. So it's okay. And um I think I just want to be able to, yeah, like yesterday was my grandmother's Shiva, which is 100 people coming to my grandmother's house, and you need food for that. And it's basically like a catered party. And for me, like that's why those sort of rainy day fund, if you will, is there. And I think my family all understands it and we all do it for each other. And there have been times when, I needed it done for me. And I don't know. Yeah, I feel like very open about um money and how to be prudent with it, and generous with it. I think our
It,
family.
it's so lovely to say, and I love that you're able to sort of talk about it because I think there's so much sort of unearned mystery around the subject. But this thing I want to get back to is like the idea, and it really comes up in the last sort of quarter of the book of like you making your, this is how I saw it anyway, this beautiful essay that you open it and you think it's going to be this laugh right of like, the everything is blessed by my dishwasher. And it made me, it really moved me. Like I actually read it and then I went onto the audiobook and then listened to it again because it sort of unlocked something in me of like, how much I love like making a meal for my husband and how much I love giving my dog her little pill in the morning and how much I love being a caregiver in this like as you would say in your book like a primal like mammalian sense,
Yeah.
but how you are running up against this sort of history of misery and sort of like domestic enslavement of being and I'm sure you, because you're a mother, I'm not, like you come up more like, oh, all I do is fucking clean things and spray things, but also there's a weird pleasure I'm getting from it, and so me and the
Yeah.
dishwasher are the gods of the house, and it really fucked me up. I really loved it.
Oh, I'm so glad. Yeah, I'm always like, I mean, I think we all, there are many of us that have to be really aware of like, well, wait, why am I doing what I'm doing? Like, am I doing it because I'm really self-critical and I've been raised up in patriarchy and I'm trying to, continually disentangle and disinfect myself from it. And maybe there's still some part of me that's like, I'm being a good girl. I'm just a good little girl. I'm a good girl. And like, and also being aware of, and I know I started to read your book before this interview and then got derailed last week by the events of my country and my life. But I also, by the way, should just say, like a year ago, my dad was like, "You're in a book." And I was like, "Do you mean I've written a book, Dad? Like, do you mean I wrote a book?" And he was like, "No, it's like in a book, like somebody encounters you in a party." And I was like, "Oh no, is it that? Like, am I drunk? What do they say?" And he was like, it's just like one of the characters is like hanging out with you, and it seems like good. It seems like you might be like popular. And I was like, oh, and then I was like, oh, I better read this book before we speak. And then I got derailed. But one thing that I was thinking about a lot is like, the main character is like looking at her old papers and thinking
Mhm.
like, oh my God, like I was such a misogynist. That's so, it's a little scary, because like she just thought she was being a student. And I feel that way about my 20s and like my early 30s even, like just like really being like, wait, what was I doing? Like what
Yeah,
was I doing?
how
Why
many thoughts I legitimately had and believed in and thought I
yeah,
had myself with my own brain.
like what the hell? Like, oh my God, I wasn't neutral. Something was acting on me. I was like saying stuff and it was not right and or not in my point of view. But anyway, I'm always like, why are you doing why do you like what you like? And I think about that now, especially having a daughter. Um, and I think it's really annoying that there are a lot of men that are allowed to like what they like. And sometimes if they like something that's sort of outside of the like um whatever is the long list, what they're allowed to like anyway, it's like they're congratulated. Like, oh my God, it's so nice that this dad likes to carry his baby on his body. Even though because usually the wife carries it, but we know that he still has a penis, and he can
Yeah.
carry it.
Or
Like it's just
is it so amazing that this man has read Zadie Smith? It's like,
hey, yeah, congrats.
fuck you.
Yeah, congrats. Welcome in, honestly, is how I feel about it. And it's like, so I'm just like, what am I doing? But I want to be able to like what I like. And I've just thought a lot about it. But the start of my book, the epigraph is from Leonora Carrington's novel, The Hearing Trumpet. And I love that book so much. But also one thing I read about her was that like she worked as an artist in a way where she was like, women should, I mean, and this is not, it was probably like a revolutionary idea for her to have it when she had it, in like the 60s and 70s, I believe, but or maybe even earlier. But she was like, I want to do my house and I want to do my work. So my house has to be in a way where I can have like my children around and do my work. And she wasn't like, no, I don't even boil an egg for anyone anymore because you're a sucker if you do it. And I'm always looking for the middle ground, but I think it's just really a nonstop thing to be like, why did I just apologize for that thing I shouldn't have apologized for? Like how much of the spell is still working? And I think it's very freeing to be able to lay it all out. And that piece is like, it makes me feel relaxed.
It made me feel very relaxed of like, yeah, I remember one time when our boiler broke and my husband called somebody about it and he was like, well, it's like the house is a car and this is the engine. Like this is the engine in the house. Like it's like and then it made me realize that I was living with it. Like my home is a kind of a strange little machine, and I'm a little machine within the machine. And like, I don't know. It just, yeah. Sorry, it's nothing to do with anything. But yeah, it's very strange to get to talk to you, particularly because of that thing in my book where your name comes up. And like, do you wish for any clarity on that, or do you like it do you like it kept as a
Well,
mystery?
unless there's like a terrible surprise coming,
No,
I
I
will get
mean,
myself because I'm gonna come and do your podcast. So then when I don't know if they, I mean, I hope you know
uh,
that.
I know
But
I do know that, but it's
okay,
lovely to have
good.
it confirmed. I was afraid I'd
Oh
fuck up the
yeah.
interview and you would change your mind.
Oh yeah, no, I would love to do it. And I should have answered those questions myself. But I have a very nice I have, like some very nice minders who um are like, I don't know, Jenny, like maybe don't do like 90 interviews a day. But but I am myself, my answer, me is like, no, I would like to do that.
Oh,
Anyway,
that's
and
nice.
so then we can discuss it when I'm on your own show, and I would just like to read it myself, and then we can,
Okay.
yeah,
Okay, I'm very excited about that. I'm conscious that we're coming near to time. And so was it quarter past that you needed to go?
yeah, I should go soon.
Okay. Okay. And I want to just a couple of things that I have written down here that I'm like, if you don't ask her about this, you'll be annoyed with yourself because you want to know the answer, and it's not for anybody else that you want to know the answer.
Okay, cool.
I would like to know how being a stoner has affected your work. And I mean that in a positive way, because I feel like if I look in your work, and I know you've like talked on stage about like smoking weed and going to the MoMA, and I think about all the time about your brain being this crepe with a worm living in it, and
Mhm.
and that like one of the tags from Spirited Away Bathhouse comes down and it just says modern art,
Yes.
and it's just like the most stunning thing. And I'm somebody who also gets high and goes to art museums and feels like I don't feel like I'm doing this Cheech and Chong thing or this Wayne's World thing. I don't feel like I'm being wasteful with my brain or with my time. I feel like I'm like communing with something important and I take it seriously. I don't take it seriously. I'm having a great time. But you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I just feel like I don't know. I'm just something you bring up in your work is getting drunk and getting high, and I want to know about how you feel about it in the context of your work.
Well, it's actually been over 5 years since I've excuse me.
Bless you.
Since I've had any marijuana product at all. So that special, that stage fright, my Netflix special is actually like the last time that I've really discussed. I mean, I wrote Little Weirds and made stage fright like basically kind of like the same sort of at the same time. Um, but then I like got started to get really, really paranoid, so I stopped smoking weed, and it's been almost 6 years, or no, it's been six.
Wow.
So, but I do think that yeah, I never felt like cheesy about it. I kind of felt like I like had my own style of being stoned, and I was never super into like stoner humor or whatever,
Mhm.
um but I really loved getting stoned. Like I just love smoking weed so much, and I just would find things so beautiful. I mean, it took a turn for the worse and that stopped happening, but I do think, and my my husband often says, he's like, you're like the one person who does not need to shroom. Like you're there. You really
The
don't.
one
And,
person.
and I do kind of feel that way. Like I do love drinking so much. And I mean, as a parent, I think I do it very responsibly, but like and I'm not really like I don't have an addictive personality. Like when I quit cigarettes, I was just like, I quit. And I had smoked almost a pack a day by the time I quit. Like in right before I wrote Little Weirds, I was like just smoking really, really heavily, and I was like, ew, this is gross, and I quit. No big deal. But I think that like the access that I got to that kind of like floaty, it's okay to wander through, emotions don't need to come in a certain order, that kind of acceptance, that like that sort of just like soft dewiness, without feeling stoned, that has like really stayed with me. But I also think the switch that's happened is that I used to get stoned to try to outrun, I realize it now,
Mm.
a certain set of feelings, and and to need to access the like the right to enjoy beauty and feel happy in the intensity that I can enjoy beauty and feel happy, and enjoy other things and feel happy. And like a big change in my life, especially after I met my husband, was that, and I just was like, I don't need to I don't need to give myself a strange sort of dissociative reason to earn these happy feelings. They are allowed in my life. And maybe I've thought that my life didn't have these feelings in it and that I had the feelings, but I wasn't allowed to be in my life with the feelings. And now I am. And so I don't know. The answer is like it's all stayed with me, but it's also really changed because a lot of that heightened beauty and faith and like belief in it has installed itself in me, and it is like this like whirring kind of weird like that I do feel inside of myself, and I know my daughter feels it too because I can, the way she expresses herself to me, I'm just like, oh hell yeah, like it's so cool. I am communicating with her in that part of myself that I used to only be able to access um when I would just like get really stoned.
Yeah. I feel like I'm coming up to that place now where you reached 5 years ago of like, the slight darkness of the woods kind of coming in on the meadow, and
Oh
I'm
my
like,
God.
oh, I want to stay in the meadow, and then thinking about it too much. And
Yeah.
but I do think, but it's almost like this thing of I've created by years of delicate usage. I have created this room in my house that is my brain that will always be there, and I can go into
Yeah.
it whenever I want. And I feel very grateful for that. And I also just don't feel like it gets a good enough rap.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I really miss it, but I can't I can't go back. I'm not willing to feel the self-loathing and panic that I would feel when I would smoke weed. And it wouldn't even be around it wouldn't be like, why did I just say that thing? Or why do I look
Hmm.
like it? Just would be, oh God, it was like really atmospheric and scary. And no, thank you.
I'm glad. I'm glad you've. Yeah, I'm glad you've still got all the whimsy that you got from that era.
Mhm.
I'm very curious as well because like, I remember you a long time ago watching like Bestie for Bestie on YouTube and just fucking loving it, and about how you are kind of the first generation of this group of creators who like found their niche by posting stuff online. You were just like the right age, the right time, the right sense of humor, like the right level of productivity, and like
Yeah.
people getting to know you through Marcel and through shows like that and stuff. And I wonder how it feels now when the internet feels like it's not good or bad. It's just simply a resource that's used for good or bad things. But like, your life getting turned into clickbait when if you take an interview or like how your relationship to it has changed, if at all.
Um, I mean, I think that time it was a really innocent time. And um it felt really easy to do those things because, well, first of all, because like my ex-husband Dean would like edit and direct them all. And so
Mm-hmm.
like all I had to do was the performance part. And he and I don't work together that way anymore. So it's harder because um that's just a very special combination. But
Mm-hmm.
so in terms of like, it just doesn't feel easy to make those things. But I do think that generally, like, I don't, I'm pretty, I feel very alienated from the internet, like, or from the social media aspect of it. I'm
Mm-hmm.
so glad about it, especially for young performers, because they can really specify themselves now. And I don't believe in those sort of like annoying, like old school tough love things that are like, you got to get real stage time. Like, I mean, I think if you want to be on stage, you should do stage time because that is how to learn to do that. But like, if you're a comedian and you do, filmed edited pieces, like you're good. You just keep doing your thing, like there's no one way. And I hate that insistence. And I think it's really old school and
Mm-hmm.
oppressive. Um, but I'm just like, yeah, I like don't understand the internet very much. And like I myself, I have Instagram, but I have like a very nice young lady that I literally hired like to, hey, I want to like say this. I want to say my show's tonight at 6 p.m. and here's the image. And I just give it to her and she posts it. And I never look at social media. I haven't looked at it in a really long time. If like I don't actually use it anymore. Like nobody pretends to be me, you know what I mean? But
Mm-hmm.
I don't imagine that there's any way that I would go back to fully engaging. Like there's a part of me that every time I read a beautiful book, I want to post about it. But I'm also aware of this feeling that's like, I don't really want to be in conversation out here because like what it brings up in me. I don't like the like that addictive feeling that even as a person that is not a very addictive in
Mm-hmm.
personality, I am for the internet. I am for social media. And I don't think I act well. I don't like how I behave. And I don't like how much I just feel so vain and like I need validation and all of these things that in my on the ground life, I feel comfortable with where I'm at. And um, while I appreciate when people discuss my work online, if they are to, or circulate my work, I'm not really sure that it's where my work should go.
Mm-hmm.
Because I like my work too much to not engage with people about it. And I want to engage, like I want to engage as my best self. And
Yeah,
so
yeah,
then
yeah.
like I love going on podcasts. I absolutely love it. I love being interviewed, all that, but it's like I just don't think I honestly I kind of might be too old. Like I don't know. I don't feel old, but I think I'm like the way people use it now, I just don't. I feel like someone that only ever rode a horse and now there are cars here and I'm like,
Yeah.
mean you got here in 10 minutes? Like I'm just like, I don't need to, I'll go on my horse. I'll get there in 5 hours. Like I don't
I
really,
don't need it.
yeah.
Thank you for answering these incredibly impertinent questions. But I just I hope the rest of your, I mean, is it still Shiva? Is Shiva a thing that goes on for?
Yeah, it can go on for a week. We kind of had like the major one yesterday, just because it's hard. And
Yeah,
we're not
yeah,
like very religious. I myself am genuinely not I mean, I was just talking to my aunt about it. Like I'm not an atheist because I guess I believe in spirits, but I'm agnostic for sure. Um,
yeah.
yeah, I don't know. I believe in more than just science, but
Mm.
I don't know what it is. Anyway,
Anyway,
this has been actually like a really, and I had a feeling I was like, maybe I shouldn't do the interview because I'm all weird and I keep crying and what if I cry? But instead I was like, maybe it will be nice to, in a gentle way, talk about something important to me. And I really thank you for giving me that.
oh, I'm so delighted. Thank you so much for doing this with me, and I really hope it comes across. I'm just such a fan of the way you think and the way you do things, and I hope we get to talk again when you've had a little bit more
Well,
time as well. To I want to like yeah, we have a rain of myself on you when you're at an incredibly delicate time in your life, and yeah, I hope it's. I've been to a lot of weddings and funerals in the last few years, and for some of them, I've liked the funerals better because it just feels like everyone's being more honest, and and I hope you have it one of those kind of times, you know.
yeah, it's been really sweet. It's everybody said yesterday they were like, I think she would have liked that. I think we did a really I think she instructed us well while she was alive for how to send her off.
Mm. Well, I'll speak to you soon, Jenny. Thank you so much for this.
Thank you so much.
Have a
Ugh.
great day. Bye.